Welcome, dear friends, to the 11th edition of the entirely digital Hyderabad Literary Festival 2021. Welcome to the stream, Reading My Book, with interesting collection of books and writers. We have here Ishika Ranjan, Ruchi Ranjan, and Bishen Sahai. Happy to introduce to you Ishika Ranjan, who's a student of the 11th grade in Hyderabad. An avid reader, she has a penchant for writing. At the age of 7, she started penning down essays on her favorite pastimes, nature, and the world around her. She later graduated to writing on more elaborate themes covering genres like soft sci-fi, adventure, and humor. While authoring her debut book of Drabbles, she relied on her vivid imagination and strong vocabulary, which has received widespread appreciation. She's now working on the plot of her second book. Her writing abilities have also earned her the editorship of a school magazine. Her mother, Dr. Ruchi Ranjan, lives in Hyderabad, the city of Nizams. Born and brought up in New Delhi, she holds a doctorate in child psychology from the University of Delhi and is a trained counselor. At present, she works with marginalized children in select schools of Hyderabad. She taught psychology at the university level and has to her credit several published research papers. Her recent book of Drabbles comprises stories inspired by her surroundings, people, and their idiosyncrasies, reflecting deep sensitivity and positivity. The book has been received well both in India and abroad. It also features in Amazon's bestsellers list. Her father, Bishen Sahai, the youngest, I may add, of this trio, is a non-agrarian, a postgraduate business administration diplomat from Delhi University. He's a retired corporate manager, having held senior executive, advisory, and board-level positions in engineering and pharmaceutical companies. He's an occasional writer and writes mainly on governance and management-related subjects. His reading interests are varied, though historical fiction tops the list. Known for his brevity, precise, and wit, in his book of Drabbles, he has interwoven anecdotes mostly from his workplace and related interactions with colleagues and friends. A word about the book that the trio, grandfather, daughter, and granddaughter, will be reading out of. Our World, a Symphony of Drabbles by 3 Generations, is a compilation of 86 stories in the form of Drabbles, from a family of 3 generations, the grandfather, the mother, and the daughter. A Drabble is a work of fiction, a story written in exactly 100 words, not a word more, not a word less. The essence of the Drabble is in its brevity, testing the author's ability to express meaningful ideas in a limited space. May I request you to please play the recordings of Our World, a Symphony of Drabbles, read by 3 generations.
Ambition Sai. This story is titled Chi Chi. This event belongs to the period before the Chinese Revolution. The Chinese were westernizing, and the West at best was patronizing. Dr. Sung, Kuomintang's foreign minister, was seated beside an English grandee at an offshore dinner in London. My lord didn't know that he spoke English. There was no conversation. After soup, the Englishman, to be polite, turned to the yellow man. Like it soupy? Dr. Sung smiled and nodded. During the after-dinner speeches, Dr. Sung was requested to speak. He delivered much to his neighbor's discomfort, an excellent speech in flawless English. As he sat down, he turned to my lord. Like his speech?
Hello friends, I am Ruchi Ranjan. I am going to read my story, Dev and His Companion. She was his constant companion, loyal and dedicated to the core. In times of joy and sadness, she provided true and unconditional love, rarely seen even in human beings. The four-legged Julie and the two-legged Dev were inseparable. With very few friends of his own breed, my grandfather's house was the only abode they visited. Life is full of twists and turns. Dev succumbed to a strange illness, leaving Julie all alone. Not sure if she understands what has happened, but her daily visits to my grandfather's house continue. She searches each and every room with a sad, vacant look.
Hello, my name is Ishika Ranjan and I'll be reading my story, Real versus Real. Following the stream of black smoke, we departed from the road. Julia and I soon found ourselves surrounded by a dense forest. The cloud of impenetrable murky smoke led us to a decrepit house. The steady flame wasn't being tended to at all. Two burned skeletal bodies lay outside. We had to act. Fast, frantically, we ran in search of aid. The sound of a running river guided us to a throng of people. How could they be so oblivious to the raging fire so near them? Angered, we confronted them. We were left red-faced. It was a movie shoot.
Now I am going to read the story titled Hide and Seek. Under the bed, below the table, behind the door, my entire family was playing hide and seek. Social distancing and lockdown had limited our movement. He had to be somewhere. It was difficult to search for one located in a duplex. He refused to respond to our knife calls. His silence complicated the operation. Tempers ran high. Without him, work from home was impossible. And during COVID-19, everything had to be done virtually. Classes to webinars. Exhausted, I went to make a pumpkin spice latte and reached for a cup and saucer. There lay silently the hidden one, my smartphone.
My next story is titled Deep Sea Terror. It was a cold morning. Vacationing in Mauritius, I had planned to go scuba diving. Decked up in a diving suit, flippers, and carrying an oxygen tank, I was ready for an adventure. Splash! I jumped in. Exploring the habitat of sea creatures, I suddenly saw an unidentifiable creature heading my way. Petrified, I began swimming at full speed towards the boat. The strange fish was already there before me. Instinctively, I screamed for help. The guide who had come to my rescue burst out laughing. "It's our local dolphin," he said, bemused. Chuckling, we all swam elegantly with the intelligent creature.
This story is titled What Hurts Most. My friend Malti, a management consultant in her 30s, was returning from Missouri with two male colleagues after conducting a training program. They were waylaid by laठी-bearing hoodlums. निकालो क्या है तुम्हारे पास? Wallets were quietly handed over, rings, bangles, and watches were snatched. Malti sent through the ordeal, nervous and apprehensive. until one rogue came round to her side of the car and whispered, "Don't worry, Mataji, we only want money." Certainly, they were unscathed. The car was allowed to leave unhurt. Bhante was livid, recounting the trauma to me. I can't imagine that old day could call me Mataji.
My next story is titled Good Vibes Only. The kaleidoscopic swirl of colors made her sit upright. The reflection of bright shades on the window mesmerized her. As the gale of wind rattled the glass, the window pane danced to its tune. The air was ripe with the fragrance of loamy earth and delicate blossoms. The pleasant, dewy petrichor smelt just heavenly. Anika had been feeling low ever since she had been confined to bed. The accident had been unfortunate, a stroke of bad luck. It had restricted her mobility. Holding her crutches, she mustered the courage to stand and took a deep breath. Healing had only just begun.
My next story is called Dark. The whole world turned black. Was I unconscious, or was this a dream? Slowly, I raised my arm, then attempted to pinch myself. Ouch! My mind was foggy. Trudging ahead through the dark maze, I crashed into several obstacles. Stumbling, I reached heaven. My source of divine light lay in front of me. But what was this mysterious object radiating such bright light? The sun? No, it must be the moon. As I reached the balcony, my mother flashed the torch at my face. There was a power cut. The past week's sleepless nights had finally taken its toll on me.
My next story is titled The Wider Lens. Having failed his engineering exams, Suraj was shattered. Life had no meaning and he wanted it to end. Deep in thought, he sat on the shore, gazing at the birds and the sun going down. Setting up his DSLR camera, he captured the image. The sight of a bird encapsulated in the ring of fire, appearing to break free, shook him completely. Like the bird, he imagined himself soaring high above the sun. Gone were the days when he would sit alone and brooding. Photography had always been his passion, and in an instant, he found new meaning to life.
This story is titled Paris Preempted. Ramesh, a young boy in his teens, was allowed a month's holiday in England by his affluent parents. Condition being stick to England, no travel to Sin City, Paris. Paris being taboo naturally was predominant in Ramesh's plans. Cleverly, he addressed 3 postcards to his mother, each dated at a week's interval, aided by the tourist guide that described his imaginary excursions in London and around. These he handed over to the landlady to post each date-wise and off to Paris. But the puzzled landlady, seeing no point in delaying the job, put them all in the mailbox, all together.
My next story is titled Daughters as Daughters. Undaunted, she drove all the way to the Godavari river bath. In their patriarchal setup, which predominantly eulogized on the birth of a son, here was a daughter taking charge. Transcending the taboos imposed by society, she carried the earthen pot of her father's ashes for immersion. Keeping herself afloat on the wobbly coracle, she held on to the pot. The boat paused in the middle of the river. With a heavy heart, she let it go. Life comes full circle. She moved ahead, a snail on the shore, back bearing a tough exterior. She was down, but not out.
Now I'll be reading my story, Necklace or Noose. It was the most alluring heirloom. Intricate carvings of phrases from the Bible ornamented the pendant. Today, this precious antique was finally mine. Alone in the Hertfordshire hills, I set out on my solitary hike. The necklace adorning my neck grew tighter with every breath. Soon, it was choking me. Eerie sounds echoed through the hills. The cawing of ravens rang over my shrieks. No matter how hard I tried, it wouldn't come off. An enormous banyan tree loomed in the distance. Hundreds of bodies hung from the branches of the tree, each dangling with a necklace similar to mine.
My next story is titled The Silent Night. The grandfather clock struck. Dong. It was 12, midnight. I woke up to a sound. Thup, thup. Somebody was trying to break open the door. Terrified, I covered myself with the blanket. There was a pause. Then it started again. I shuddered. In the quiet of the night, the sound was shrill and piercing. I edged my way slowly in its direction and asked, "Who is it?" There was no response. The sound grew louder and louder. I moved ahead and found myself standing in the bathroom, wiping the beads of sweat off my forehead. I tightened the dripping water tap.
Truly delightful, absolutely delightful reading by Sri Sahai, Ruchi Ranjan and Ishika Ranjan. Beautifully rendered and lovely recording as well. Thank you so much for this very novel reading. The next question that's being asked is to the three generations. And the question that is being raised is, what made you decide to come together to write? And the second question connected to that is, why Drabbles? That's a challenging thing to do. So here's over to Ruchi, Ishika, and Shisahai.
Yeah, hello everybody. This writing of Drabbles is a unique concept. So it has not been tried in India, though it is very popular in the UK. So during the lockdown, we took it up as a challenge, and you could say that the dark cloud of the coronavirus, it had a silver lining for us. So we penned down these short stories in 100 words. And as Ruskin Bond says, this is a very unusual combination of the grandfather and the mother and the granddaughter getting together. So, and we wanted to show how we could rise above this negativity and the three generations could work in harmony together. And they have different perspectives, different ideas. And it's very interesting to read the three perspectives by three different generations. So that has been highlighted in the book.
Lovely, lovely. Would you like to add to that, Ishika, Sri Sahai?
He will not be able to answer because he has a hearing problem, but Ishika would be able to add. Yeah.
Please, Ishika.
I think there's two interesting things in our book. One, that it is stories in just 100 words, and one, that it is three generations coming together. So for the three generations together, in all our 86 stories, we can see the generational differences in all the stories. So my stories, they're mostly sci-fi, horror, thriller. My mother's are basically realistic fiction, and my grandfather's are real-life anecdotes. So these three generational gaps, they can be seen in all our stories, which is what makes them unique.
Wonderful. Very nice. Thank you so much. Very delightful indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you for being with us, for reading my book, all of you, and particularly Shri Sahai for making it possible from your space. Technology is not always the easiest, though it does help us connect. So thank you so much, all of you, for being here. And over to other sessions over these. Thank you, sir. Over to these other sessions that are in the offing for the next day and the part of what is left here. Thank you so much. Good evening to all.